One of my favorite authors, Yuval Noah Harari, went on the Rich Roll podcast last September in 2018, and the title of that podcast is Yuval Noah Harari, Why Clarity is Power. And in that podcast, Yuval opens up the discussion of that historically, specifically in the industrialized revolution, the air quote Iron Age, people looked at knowledge as being power, information, being able to gather information and synthesize it, and being able to sell that information to the highest bidder, whether you're an employee looking to get a job, or being the gatekeeper of information, such as a university who's for hire to teach other people what information that they have. That was the idea for the past 150 years. But now we've moved from the industrial age into the information age. So what does power look like in the information age? We've moved from knowledge is power to what? And that's where clarity comes into play. Yuval's argument is that we are inundated by information. It is not an issue to have access to information. The gatekeepers are gone. My good friend who's an engineer told me that he's learned more about engineering on YouTube than he did with his 5 years at university. I can attest to that myself as a marketer, someone who has relatively been into sales and marketing for the past 6 or 7 years. I've learned most of what I know today through the internet and not through formal education. So if we've moved past knowledge is power, what does that bring us to? It brings us to being able to decipher which information is essential and which information is most useful for our specific situation. And it makes me think of Google. I know there's a saying that's floating out there that in the age of Google, it's no longer about having the right answers. It's about having the right questions. If you're playing a game of having all the answers, you're going to inevitably lose that game because technology has it. What you know, what other people know, is easily accessible in the back pocket of someone who has a smartphone. So playing that game of information wars and gating information or charging for the information you have seems to be an increasingly lost cause. Which brings us to the next level of thought, which is this idea that having clarity is what is now powerful. Being able to disseminate between what's useful information and what is distraction, what's productive and what is counterproductive, what is true and what is false. We have all this access to at our fingertips, and the age of BSing at the bar is now gone when someone can bring up their smartphone and quickly find out the answer. And I hope that you do that to me on this podcast and any of the work that I disseminate. If I say something or write something that doesn't make sense, please let me know. My goal isn't to be right. My goal is to get better and to contribute. And I hope that that is a virtuous cycle that is never ending. But nonetheless, clarity, being able to be objective with the information that's at hand. And the way to be objective is to have context. And the way to have context is to have perspective. And to me, to have perspective, you have to have the space to be able to look at information, the onslaught of information, whether it's from Twitter, Facebook, Google, YouTube, just to name a few sources. Being able to look at that information objectively and control the way you apply your attention in the most meaningful and productive manner. So for me, the way I've myself have been working on gaining clarity is through meditation. And I've been a meditator since 2015. I've done a podcast on mindfulness, and you can find that episode on episode 83. And that episode talks a lot about space and how mindfulness, the training, is the ability to observe your thoughts and being able to practice that repeatedly over and over and over and over again. That is a skill set that you can build that has been tested, that has been scientifically shown on brain imaging of changing the chemistry of one's brain on how they relate to incoming information to the brain. So I highly suggest that you check out that podcast about gaining perspective or gaining space. And Yuval Noah Harari himself is an avid meditator. He meditates 2 hours a day, 1 hour before work, 1 hour after work. And he has pointed to the fact that his best-selling books are in result of his ability to focus, and his ability to focus has been strengthened through his meditation practice. So I highly suggest that you look into that. But something more practical that I've also come across, something that you can apply immediately, is the ability to time block. And what I mean by time block is to block out times of your schedule that are essential. So the things that you can't get rid of, whether it's the time at work from 9 to 5 or for whatever time that you go to work, block that out, write that down. It's a cost that you have to pay. And then you look at the white space outside of the time that you can't avoid. Look at that white space and start filling it up with things that you're interested in, things that you're curious about, things that you feel if you pursued would make you better. Do that every day. So what I do is I plan out my whole day, my next 24 hours at 3:30 the day before. And that is a continuous cycle. So I plan my day at 3:30 today. Tomorrow, I'm going to try to follow the schedule that I put forth. But what's important is having access to the information, being able to look at how you're deploying on your resources and how you're spending that. And being able to look at that and trace it over time will give you the ability to optimize and adjust where need be. So with that, my wife has just entered. Jess, come here. You're on the podcast. Welcome to the studio.
Wow. Hello.
Do you want to tell the viewers how the studio is, what it looks like?
A mess.
And that is our guest room closet. So how was your day?
It was good. How was yours?
Good. I'm about to wrap this up.
Awesome.
I don't know how to wrap it
I'm
up, though.
starving, so.
Okay.
I'm ready to eat when you were.
Okay. I'm ready to eat now. So
Take your time if you're not done yet.
I'm done.
Oh, okay.
I gave my word of advice for the week, and we're going to see how it goes. Hopefully I'll get feedback.
Sounds
Where
good.
should people leave feedback? Should they tweet me? Should they text me? Should they leave a review on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Spotify,
Oh my.
wherever you
I
consume your
think all of the
podcasts?
above. Everything.
This episode is about clarity. You know that book that you bought me?
Which one?
Sapiens.
Mm-hmm.
The author of that book, he says that no longer is the term knowledge is power. He says clarity is power.
Wow.
What are your thoughts on clarity? Is that woo-woo, or do you feel like it's important?
Oh, I think it's important. If you don't have clarity, then you're uncertain.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. I think that's a great place to stick the landing. Much love.